Hello and welcome to Business Today. I'm Siddharth Zarabi, and joining me today are three guests who understand the fundamentals of what's happening between India and the United Kingdom as far as the landmark trade agreement is concerned. The Premier of the United Kingdom here in India as we speak with a very large business delegation in Mumbai, different interactions, and the whole idea is to build on that trade agreement and get it operational very soon to ensure that both countries can benefit. And that agreement, as we know, has several very interesting elements. And to decode the significance of the visit and what more can we expect, I'm joined by Sanjay Nayar, President of industry body ASSOCHAM, and a very well known name in Indian industry and from the high finance sector. Mr. Jayant Krishna, Senior Fellow of CSIS, former Group CEO of UKIBC. And we also have with us Professor K. Vijayraghavan, former Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Sanjay, I'm coming to you first to sort of explain and put it in context for our viewers. How do you see this being a significant moment for Indian exports, given what is happening with the United States and the fear that we will see a dip in exports to that geography?
Thanks, Siddharth, and hello everyone. I think, look, firstly, it's very opportune. Moment has happened. Of course, it's still to be cleared by the UK Parliament, but assuming that gets done, I think the ball is in our exporters' court to really up their game in terms of quality, capacity, scale, and begin to export. I mean, 99% of our goods are going to be kind of tax-free into the UK. So I would say at a very top-down level, Siddharth, this is an opportunity coming at a very opportune moment, and frankly, it's up to us to seize the opportunity to make it work. And it's not a slam dunk because you are going to compete with others. It's just that the window of opportunity has been opened up, and I think we got to seize it. So I would say in the current scenario, it's a great timing for us, and we'll, I'm sure, talk about it more. We need to do, as a private sector, a lot to do to make sure that we can capture the window of opportunity.
Absolutely, capturing that window of opportunity, that's an important comment, especially viewers, if you've read headlines around visas. I would argue that let's not get fixated on the visa bit, because there are so many other elements, granularity in this trade deal, that really tell us that there is a significant potential. And on that point, coming to you, Professor Vijayraghavan, there's a lot of focus on science and technology, and usually when we talk about a bilateral trade agreement, some of those points get overlooked. In what's the big picture on that front specifically?
It's important to keep the science and technology situation going forward in the context of the 2035 projection, which was made last year when our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, visited the UK. Now, in that 2035 projection, there's another component which has just come up, which is the Technology Strategic Initiative, or TSI. That covers a whole lot of sectors which are critically important, and they move standing on the shoulders of our foundational cooperation of many years. These forward-looking collaborations cover critical minerals, AI, quantum technology, biotech, and so on. And therefore, the question is, how can all these areas be ramped up into both academic collaborations, startups, and building industries at both locations? That has become eminently feasible by this agreement. Indian startups and Indian academia are superb, but their scaling is a challenge. The UK's regulatory structures provide a model, and the UK provides a good collaborative landing ground for that scaling to take place, so that Indian and UK partnerships can become truly global and global companies can come. How much this will happen depends on how much our entities grasp this and collaborate with the UK entities, but it looks very promising.
That's a very good point about Indian companies leveraging this opportunity, because if the policy framework, if the trade framework has been agreed upon, and viewers, this point that's been made about UK ratifying it, this is interesting. Unlike the Indian system where the cabinet form of government approves a trade deal, and I'm going to come to Jayant Krishna on that point as well, the UK has a parliamentary approval procedure. So two parts to the question. One, about how well placed in your reading, Jayant Krishna, is the Indian corporate sector to leverage the opportunities that this trade pact has opened up? And before you answer that, give us a sense of what kind of timeline is likely as far as the formal ratification is concerned from the UK side.
See, one thing is very important. Let's look at what UK has said about this free trade agreement. Of course, officially there's a different name for it, which was signed, when the Prime Minister Modi visited London, earlier this year. So I think, UK calls it as their most significant trade deal since Brexit, So it's not a small thing at all, and India having signed it with UK, with UAE, with Australia, and now happening with European Union. I think some of the doors which were getting shut because of the US tariff. I think it's a good moment. Talking about specifics, I think how prepared, as your question was, is the Indian industry to leverage the advantage because of this FTA. I think let's look at the key products which India exports. To the UK, right? It includes textiles, it includes leather goods, sports goods, gems and jewellery, organic food, and so on and so forth. 99% of the goods which India today exports to the UK will get covered under zero duty kind of a thing going forward, right? So I think it is for Indian export houses to leverage this opportunity big time and take a quantum leap in the exports to the US. If you look at the total exports the bilateral trade between the two countries, it is just about 25 about 10 billion right now, right? I'm talking about the pound sterling, and it will go up to, the target has been set up there by the year 2040, it becomes 25 billion. So I think there's a huge opportunity from Indian side to leverage this lower duty structure, and obviously there's a huge opportunity from UK side also, because if you look at the alcoholic products like whiskeys and gins, it started with a duty of 150%, and it's come down to 75%. Of course, it's getting operationalized, and eventually it will settle at about 40%. Look at auto products. The 100% duty becomes almost 10%. In another quota system. So I think there are opportunities on both sides, and also let's also understand it's not just about trade. Trade becomes a magnet for foreign direct investment happening, which India needs very, very desperately. If India really wants to become a developed country by the year 2047, as the Prime Minister keeps saying, it can only happen if we grow at or close to 9% per annum GDP growth rate, or 8.5% at least. So I think if that has to happen, FTAs like these will go a long way.
Oh, absolutely. Professor Vijayraghavan, I'm coming back to you, and I want to swing the needle towards another point that is both current and important from an Indian point of view, which is education. And we know that there are hundreds and thousands of Indians who spend money, go overseas. The United States is not so hospitable as far as for higher education is concerned. I wonder, through the lens of this pact, does it open up more opportunities for Indian students, and does it kind of help us allow educational cooperation to also take center stage?
From the perspective of what India needs to do going forward in higher education. In higher education, and I'll focus on the STEM subjects, India has got a significant number of quality institutions, but we need to expand the footprint of these quality institutions very rapidly without compromising on quality. And one of the ways to do this, there are many ways, one of the ways to do this is through international collaboration. And therefore, now there's an opportunity for UK universities to partner with Indian institutions, public and private, and also set up shop on their own in higher education, combining not just education, but combining that with research. If that happens, it's a sea change from only having our people going abroad to countries in the West for education. which is a significant number. It's a huge budget, but it's nothing compared to the large number of people here who need that wide quality of education. There are many attempts in India which have gone up now to grow that sector hugely, but partnership is one of the areas which will help that happen with speed.
Professor Vijayraghavan, one quick follow-up on that. So, if 9 campuses of British institutions were to be opened up in India, those students will get educated within India. Does it help us reverse the brain drain? Because that's again a question that some people would ask.
That's true. I mean, I think the question of reversing the brain drain is a more complicated issue. We have been very good at training quality people. We need to expand the absorbability of those people in our ecosystem, and that requires our institutions broadly to be more welcoming, more research opportunities in industry, and changes in social infrastructure significant. All these are happening, and the question is, what is the rate? These kinds of institutions will help train better people. And along with new opportunities developing here, yes, you will have a large number of people staying back. By the way, it's not just the brightest and the best who go abroad. It's also a very large number of people who see routine opportunities abroad. And again,
absolutely, it's like the first stepping stone and that is what experience teaches us. And of course, there are some examples which are not so good. And viewers, while you might wonder about UK institutions coming to India, please also take note of the fact that an institution as famous and as significant as IIM Ahmedabad has set up a campus overseas in Dubai. So, things are happening on both ends. Sanjay, I'm coming to you. You spent a lifetime being a big deal maker, talking to AAA rated companies all your life. But I want to ask you, explain to our viewers, what about MSMEs, small companies, medium-sized companies in India who form the backbone of the Indian economy in many ways? Do they get to gain anything out of this partnership and strategic agreement?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, for whatever the other speakers said, if there is a pickup in just simple and straightforward outward exports, and just taking the most labor intensive and supply chain intensive sectors that will benefit, like we heard about autos and auto components and other industries, clearly their supply chain, which consists of hundreds of MSMEs, will benefit. So that's the simplest logic in terms of getting more orders, getting more business. I think the second more important thing is that MSMEs do also need to collaborate with the SMEs and MSMEs and OEMs from UK. There'll be a lot more mobility of the entrepreneurs and the people under the SETA. And I think that if they can benefit from enhancement in technology, innovation, and productivity, I think the MSMEs have kind of a big time upside in terms of getting much better productivity measures. And I think it's all going to be, a lot of this is going to be OEM to MSME and SME to SME. Thirdly, I think as you just heard, India needs FDI desperately. And I think the urgency of that cannot be underestimated. And while trade agreements are trade agreements, they do, in a way, indicate complete trust and a strategic shift in relationship. And I think this is a strategically very positive act. And what that does is that it gives the exporter of capital, an FDI from overseas into India, a sense of comfort and trust, underlined by this kind of an FTA. And there will be a lot of opportunities for companies overseas to come and build capacity in India for both make in India as well as export. So again, I think it's not always the big guys who need the FDI, but it's the medium-sized guys who need the FDI. So I think, the way I look at this FTA, it opens up massive opportunities of partnership and collaboration. And we have to be absolutely open-minded about it. We have to be welcoming about it. We have to lower our guard down a little bit. And we have to imbibe both the capital and the technology and, enhance scale and productivity. But quality is going to become very, very critical as well. Otherwise, it's not going to be easy just because you have an FTA that you can sell what you like. So I think MSMEs have a lot to benefit qualitatively and scale-wise.
Jayant, I'm taking a couple of the important points that Sanjay makes here. One is on FDI and the other about having a mindset that is more open. What Sanjay is also talking about is that some fears about certain sectors, particularly from the ASEAN agreement, that continue to have effect on certain sectors. So, two parts to my query to you. One, help us understand that aspect in terms of whether this deal does anything to encourage investments, UK bound, outbound investments into India, in the context of the EFTA agreement, where there is in a way a commitment of sorts that EFTA countries will encourage $100 billion of investment into the Indian economy over a period of time. The government of India says that this is a never before unique proposal that has been inked as far as the FTA agreement is concerned. So do you think there are certain similarities that we can help our viewers understand?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, FDI paves way. It becomes some kind of a magnet for attracting foreign direct investment. And with UK, it's a two-way traffic. It's not just UK FDI coming into India. Even India's investments going to UK. I mean, let's not forget, Tatas are the single largest industrial employer UK has as a country, all Tata companies put together, including the acquisitions it made, right? So it's a two-way traffic. But from an Indian perspective, I think surely, I think the FDI will pay way to attract more FDI and stimulate some kind of a domestic manufacturing. Because it essentially reduces protectionism, which government of India had been following for a very, very long time to come. Both the countries will have better access to raw materials, to capital goods, and so on and so forth. And eventually it will help the consumers, right? I read Professor Vijayraghavan's, op-ed in one of the newspapers today, and I completely agree. Science and technology is another area where India has a lot to learn from UK, right? I mean, there are so many patents, so many intellectual properties they have. Look at their universities. They are the best-in-class institutions, even in global rankings, right? And India has very few of them. So I think there's a lot we can learn in that space at all. But Indian side has to be conscious enough to be able to, solicit that kind of a cooperation. But there's a bag full of opportunities on the science and technology front as well, So I think there's a lot which can happen both sides, and I fundamentally believe that see, one thing is that our country somehow doesn't believe that trade could be an instrument for GDP growth. A lot of people this ratio, trade to GDP ratio, was languishing at about between 20 to 30% for a very long time to come. Now, fortunately, it has come in early 40s. I think it's a good encouragement. And eventually, I think if you don't protect your domestic industry too much, you allow easier imports and so on and so forth, in the long run, it makes your domestic industry globally competitive. Because you raise your bar, you raise your quality, you improve your standards, and so on and so forth. So I see a lot of opportunities in this, and I'm particularly happy because it takes me back to the time when I was the Group CEO of UK India Business Council, and we had started working on FTA, and it has taken almost 4 British Prime Ministers, from Boris Johnson to Liz Truss to Rishi Sunak to
well, who would have thought, Jayant, that there would come a time when the empire would be knocking at our doors to have a trade deal. So, my first beat as a reporter was the Commerce Ministry and the WTO. We know what state the WTO is in, and I would never have imagined a day where you and so many other people would make this pointed observation. So it tells you about the growth of the Indian economy, and we all need to be proud of it. But equally, Professor Vijayraghavan, when it comes to science and technology, and you know that subject, I'm asking you a question that's perhaps not strictly related to this agreement, but technology transfer in so many memorandums, agreements, MOUs, bilateral understandings. We always hear about technology, India benefiting, but when it comes to high technologies, you would agree with me that transfer of technology is not easy. Countries and companies want us to purchase solutions, pay for it, but not transfer technology. Has that situation changed? Should I continue to be pessimistic, or is there reason for me to change my view?
There are three different levels at which science and technology operates. At the foundational level of collaborations, there is free exchange of every information. That's the way science grows. At the next level, you collaborate to generate IP. And you bring in whatever IP you have, or you generate new IP which you share. And the third, you operate that IP into industry. The challenge is once you start operating that IP, people are not ready to let that go. But today there's a great opportunity, strangely, because of an existential threat of two major kinds. The growth of AI and the problems related to climate change means that technology sharing between countries which have got these IP at huge levels and countries which have large number of quality people, such as India, is vital. So will that threat operate to release this blockade of technology sharing? I don't know, but it's a great opportunity. If the technology sharing in this situation takes place, in AI, in climate mitigation and adaptation, there's a huge business opportunity, but also something which simultaneously serves humanity on a large scale. So it's very imperative that British and Indian scientists and policymakers grasp this opportunity and look at technology transfer from this perspective too.
Professor Vijayraghavan, quick comment as we come to the end of the show on defense technology, because that's a space that is currently in discussion. Does this do anything to sort of make things better as far as that is concerned from an Indian perspective?
Yes, I referred to the technology initiative earlier. That's very important to keep in mind that the leaders who are driving these initiatives under that are the two deputy NSAs of the countries. And that points to the importance given to defense also in this. That includes critical areas like materials, rare earths, and so on and so forth. And there will be a lot of collaboration there, as also in AI and in quantum technologies. That will pan out, I suspect, by the growth of Indian industry in high-tech areas, and will move from high-volume, low-cost exports to high-tech, IT-dependent, AI-dependent, materials-dependent interactions. So let's see how that comes, but that's a core feature of this collaboration.
Okay, Sanjay, final comments from you, and then to Jayant. Some of the headlines are also being captured by the return of economic fugitives who have leveraged the British legal system to avoid the grasp of Indian law. For the general viewer, should that be seen as a deal spoiler or something that is par for the course, and we need to focus on the substance and not just get derailed by economic fugitives?
Okay, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't have much knowledge, but I was going to make two comments. If you didn't give me a chance, so let me do that.
Of course,
One
please.
is I was at the financial sector roundtable yesterday, and two important points to keep in mind besides what we discussed. One is I think they are very advanced in fintech. The regulations are very supportive. The entrepreneurs have done an incredible job. I think we have a great fintech opportunity because we have massive diverse geography and we have a massive population. And anyway, the agenda for this government is to drive financial inclusion. So I think that's one area of deep collaboration, innovation, and co-creating solutions, which I think we need to take to our regulators to finally allow us to have real digital banks. So that's number one. And number two, very quickly, back to FDI. There is a UK-India infra bridge. I think we need to see some results on that. This will fast track that a little bit. The UK institutions, along with their contractors, consultants, bankers, are very keen to put money into Indian infra. So I think infra FDI can be very interesting as again an upshot from the FTA. Not that it's inked, neither is it inked like the EFTA, but there's an expectation that we should be able to leverage to get more infra FDI.
Very good point, and our demand for infra continues to outstrip our capacity to deliver that. Finally, to you, Jayant, and we've done EFTA. In fact, that's already operative now from the 1st of October. Hopefully, the UK system will quickly approve of this and this will get into implementation mode as well. But beyond this, we have almost half a dozen and more engagements for trade talks, and I'm not counting the US element into it. What do you think is going to be the next trade agreement that India will be signing the soonest?
See, to my mind, I think a lot of good progress has happened with the European Union FTA, and it was going slow, but I think last 3-4 months there has been a lot of action on that, and I see that as a biggest thing because European Union is the second largest market for India, right? So I think that is what I see, and let me recall a small story when I was with the Tata Group at that point of time when all these acquisitions of Chorus, Land Rover, Jaguar, Tetley happened in the UK, right? I think I remember one of the headlines in one of the British papers. It said East India Company happening in the reverse direction, right? So I think today is there are two comparable.
So add SR Stanlow Oil Refinery to that as well, along with so many other companies, Jayant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think they're the world's fourth largest economy and the sixth largest economy. They have this FTA, and going forward, I think there's a lot to look forward to, and I see lots of opportunities, and it's going to be a genuine win-win for both the countries, not just. And last but not the least, let's not forget our Bollywood, right? I mean, yesterday he visited, the Prime Minister visited the Yash Raj studio, and they have committed that 3 more movies would be shot in the UK, right? Last several years there has been a gap. So I think let's celebrate that as well, because Indians all over
Jayant,
the world.
one of the hottest movies right now is a completely Atmanirbhar Swadeshi movie, the next chapter of Kantara, and perhaps that tells us about the state and the taste of Indian viewers. But I leave you viewers, as I thank my guests today, stellar panel today, with the final words from my side. A British Prime Minister saying that growth in India means more jobs in Britain. Who would have imagined that? And as a country, as a nation, we should feel very, very proud. But there's a lot of distance to cover, and I think millions of Indians also deserve good, paying, sustainable, healthy jobs. And we hope that this and other agreements will take us further down that path. Once again, thanks to my entire panel and you, the viewer. We'll call it a wrap on this show and come back with more programming on the other side of a very short break. Until then, goodbye.